Okay, so we're going to be creating our timelines of Jewish history. I know we started this a little bit last class, a lot of it last class, but I'm going to try to give you a tutorial to walk through it. So first things first, how to create your timeline. When creating a timeline, the first thing that you want to do is create a title for your timeline. So I'm going to click right here on new slide. That's going to get me a page like this. And I'm going to create my title. So if you look back, we already created a title, Overview of Jewish History. So that's what I'm doing. I'm calling this Overview of Jewish History. I like to center my titles, so I'm going to go over here to the Align button, and I'm going to click on the center. It gives me an overview of Jewish history. I can play around with fonts if I want. I like to look at fonts to play around with the fonts. Let's try this one, Overview of Jewish History. Okay, now we've got our text box over here. We don't really need it, but we'll come back to that in a moment. So we've created our title. Now we have to determine the start and end date for our timeline. So I know last class there was some confusion, not really confusion, but I think I made the decision to start too far back. So we're actually going to begin our timeline in 2000 BCE, just before the Avram story, and we're going to end it in 2000 CE. It's a nice round number, and that gets us to 4,000 years that we're going to be covering on our timeline. Right? So we know we have 4,000 years on our timeline. And we're now going to determine the number of lines that are going to be on our timeline. So I kind of looked at 4,000 years and figured let's create a timeline with 40 stops on it. So that what we're doing is 4,000 years divided by those 40 lines means 100, which means every line is 100 years. And the space in between is 100 years of passing time. And that is what we're going to refer to as our scale. Okay, so now we begin creating our timeline, and we started with our title. But what I'm also going to do below the title, and I'm going to go back to like a really easy font to read, Times New Roman, and I'm going to write in the scale of our timeline. And what I'm saying over here is scale is 1 to 10. I'm not going to make it so big. Make it maybe a font like that, right? And what that tells us, and what tells anybody else that's looking at it, is this is, again, what we just did before, it's 1 to 100. Every one line is equal to 100 years, okay? So we started making our timeline.